Good morning to you, Grenada and the rest of the world. It's a Sunday morning under sunny skies here, the 7th day of April. Are we there? 7th day of April, 2019. Thank you very much for joining us for today's edition of Sundays with George Grant. I am he. Pilgrims, let's get right into the rundown. This morning, as always, we are going to begin with the Holy Scriptures. Where do you go without that? Not too far. And we also have a little angel chiming in with us this morning. And then we've got two editorials for you. The Grenada Advocate, which is captioned, "Good luck to Skerritt and Shallow." Yes, sirree. The results of last weekend's vote to find a new head for Cricket West Indies. And then we turn to the new today, which is captioned, "Reckless." Huh? Yeah, you'll have to wait just a wee bit to find out what that one's all about. As far as interviews are concerned, you know, last Sunday, we'd planned on bringing you two segments from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank about the advent of digital currency. Going to be hearing a lot about that from here on in. But because of time constraints, we were only able to get to one of those pieces. So we're going to run the second part for you this morning, captioned, "The Road to Digital Currency." And the lady who's going to be hosting that is Karina Phillips-Somersall. She's the Corporate Relations Officer with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. And her guest will be Phoenix Belfield, who's the manager of the Dominica Cooperative Societies League. All right? So that's going to be your first interview. We'll try and get to that just a wee bit before 10 o'clock this morning. Then, for those of you who weren't with us on Friday, you guys don't know what you're missing. There's a lot that goes on. It's only an hour long, but every weekday morning we get together here for something called Good Day Grenada. And we have a number of guests. Somebody shows up every day, somebody different. On Mondays, we have a friend from Carriacou. Well, I'm not sure she's going to be with us tomorrow because we're having a very difficult time with the internet coming out of Carriacou. But on Tuesdays, we have Ray Roberts. On Wednesdays, we have Sharon Roberts, no relation. On Thursdays, Mr. Alan Bazinski. And then on Fridays, Brian Pitt. Well, this past Friday, we did a segment which I thought was so interesting. I decided that I would show you that particular segment with Brian this week. He was venting on the marking of SBA'S, the secondary school sports, and more. And by the way, we had that conversation. I think it's important that you know this. We had that conversation just minutes before the secondary school sports got underway at 10 o'clock. We had the conversation between 9:30 and 10 o'clock. Brian had some very, very, very interesting things to say. And I thought, I want to share this with the team on Sunday morning. So we're going to run that segment for you. It's about 20 minutes or so, okay? So those are the two interviews we've got this morning. We also have a little piece that I'm going to show to you not too long from now. Yesterday afternoon, George got one of his hot flashes and went into town with his smartphone, and carry the smartphone all the time. But yesterday afternoon decided to put it to good work. And there was a cruise ship in town, and I decided to just stop by the Melville Street Mall to see what was cooking. And I was talking to one of the vendors there. And I asked her, how was the season? And she went, the cruise ship season is what I was talking about. And she said, well, yeah, so, yeah. And she said, yeah, there have been a lot of people coming in here, but they're not buying. And she says, you know something, Mr. Grant? One of the reasons is that there ain't much for them to buy. She was talking about the lack of diversity in the product that we're offering. And so we talked for a little while, and then I said, well, what are you offering? And she took me to her little booth and showed me some of the stuff that she actually hand makes. And I thought, hey, this is different. You know, so people who buy stuff from her actually have a sort of memento that they can take home. She makes magnets. You know these little magnets you slap onto your fridge to hold maybe a sticky, a footnote or something like that? She has these little ornaments with a magnet at the back, so you can just slap it on there on your refrigerator, and there you go. You have a memento of Grenada. So I pulled out the camera and, you know, shot some stuff. I thought it was interesting, so I wanted to show that to you, and I'm going to show that to you this morning. Finally, our main feature this week. Grenadians paying for government's indiscretions. You heard the news this week. You've been hearing a lot of news along these lines for quite some time now, where a number of people over the years have taken government to court for wrongful dismissals and what have you. And I think it was just within the last couple of weeks we heard that government had finally started paying out some of the claims as a result of court rulings which didn't go in their favor. So, this past week, there was another one. Gentleman by the name of Willan Thomas, former Commissioner of Police, who was then made the Clerk of Parliament, and if I'm not mistaken, he's now retired or was sent home, whatever. And he has won his case against the government just this week. Just this week. So, I decided to talk with his attorney, friend of ours who has shown up on this program on a number of occasions, Mr. Rohan Phillip. He's the attorney at law not only for Willan Thomas, but also for the lady who was with us last weekend, I think it was, Gemma Bain-Thomas. So looks like this man's got his finger on the pulse, and he's now won 2 back-to-back cases against the government of Grenada. So Rohan's going to be in here this morning to tell us the whole story about what's been happening with these cases. And he's going to be joined by another friend of ours, policy analyst by the name of William Joseph. William, too, has had his share of problems with government. And it'll be interesting to hear what these two gentlemen, when they sit side by side, have to say. So I'm glad that you're part of the audience this morning. It's going to be informative. So please stick around with us, and we'll get started in just a wee bit. First of all, though, let me take a look here. Let's start with Rumba Chat this morning. Isaac says, "Good day, George and class, and a very successful week to all. Uneasy times lie ahead of us, taxpayers, who are forced to pay for the wrongful actions of our PM." So says he. And let's see, who else is there? Kipling Francis is saying good morning to everybody. He says, "I never thought I would see the day when Christianity and rum would have something in common." Christianity and rum having something in common? Okay. Sad to say, but it's true. They both are now being used as scapegoats. Also, both are competing to see who can take the most of your money. Okay, Kipling's thinking. By the way, I see he hasn't posted anything yet, but I see that Winthrop Wilshire is joining us there. And Winthrop, I think you're going to enjoy the very first editorial we run this morning, which comes to you from the Grenada Advocate. They're talking about the recent selection of Mr. Skerritt as the new head of Cricket West Indies. Okay, hang in there. Good to see you, Winty. Let's turn over here. Let's turn over here now to Facebook. Peter Bishop's in Long Island this morning. Anthea Rillo saying good morning. Kipling Francis, by the way, is reminding you guys to share the live this morning. Yeah, share the live and like us. Glenn Andrew Marks is checking in from Michigan. Warming up there, Glenn? Hope so. Jennifer Myers, hey, saying good morning to you, George. Good morning to all our listeners. My weekend off, so I saved this hour specially for your program. Wishing everyone a blessed Sunday. How kind of you, Jennifer Myers. Thank you so much. Please, let your friends know what you're doing this morning. Tell them to check out Facebook/Grenada Broadcast or right there on Grenada Broadcast itself. You don't have to go through Facebook. You can just, right on the homepage there. Once we're live, it's on Grenada Broadcast. Fitzroy Adams is saying good morning to his fellow students, and Oswin Lewis saying hi to you guys as well. Glenn Andrew Mark says Thomson is his last name. Yeah, why is he saying that? Did I spell that wrong? No, he says Thomson is his last name. Not sure what you're referring to, Glenn. Anyhow, Ann Williams is saying good morning from Flatbush. Is that the area where an elderly Grenadian lady got killed this past week by a hit and run? So sad. I see here now. Nigel is saying Willan. Okay. I think these folks are trying to tell me that I misspelt Willan Thomson. Nigel says WILLANTHOMSONs. I'm terribly sorry about that mistake, Nigel. We're going to get that sorted out. And hello, Margaret. Margaret's saying good morning all and wishing you a happy Sunday. She says birds are chirping, trees are budding, spring is here. Yay! Yeah. Good for you, Margaret. No, it's been a tough winter for you guys in the New York area, but everything passes away except God. Wayne Francis is saying it's good to see democracy is working. Glenn Andrew Mark says, yes, George, Michigan is warming up. Good for you, fella. And Fitzroy Adams saying government and heads of churches joined together to downplay the teachers. Yeah, well, no comment. Okay, so that's it so far there on Facebook this morning and on Rumble Chat. Anybody else there? No, not yet. Let's take our first little break here now. It's 14 and a half minutes after the hour, and we'll come on back with this week's edition of The Buzz.
Boy, they gonna fly with kite now. The wind picking up.
I'm coming. Karim, what you doing?
Fly my kite.
Yeah, but not here. You can't fly kite near power lines, boy.
Why not? The wind good.
Because mommy say kite threads conduct electricity.
Yeah, kite. He's right. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, you can cause power outages, or even worse, it can get shocked.
Come, let's go and fly them in the pasture.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kite threads conduct electricity. Do not fly kites near overhead power lines. This can lead to electric shocks and power outages. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, do not try to retrieve it. Release it and call GRENADA. Always fly kites in open areas. Keep your kites far away from roads. And remember, always clean up after yourself.
GRENADA, energizing our Grenada. Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Start the stride to a healthy lifestyle at the 2019 annual Pump It Up Family Fun Walk. There'll be more fun, more smiles, and more prizes for families and friends. Join us in Carrickoo on April 7th at 4 p.m. as we walk from the Harveyvale playing field to the Hillsborough tennis court. And in Grenada on April 28th at 4 p.m. from the Montrouge playing field to the National Cricket Stadium. Packages cost $20 per person for up to 2 individuals and $15 per person for groups of 3 or more. Come out in your numbers to help us raise funds towards re-establishing the Carlton home. Welcome home.
All right, so now that we've gotten rid of the preliminaries, I see that we have joined by Lydia James from a beautiful Canada. Lovely weather today. Well, you're not alone, girl. We've got fabulous weather here in the Spice Isle this morning, and for that we're very thankful. We're also joined by Charles Norma, saying good morning and listening. Can't wait to hear what's coming up, me boy. Well, my dear friend, good to see you. Thank you so much. It's going to be an interesting morning. Charles. Charles Norma. That's unusual. 2 first names? Huh? Okay. Let's see here. Davini Leo is saying good morning, and Benedict Cador as well, Bernard Gilbert. Folks, let's get to today's edition of The Buzz. And we begin with a reading from the Holy Scriptures. Comes to you from the book of Job, Job chapter 5, verses 15 to 21. He saves the needy from the sword in their mouth. He saves them from the clutches of the powerful. So the poor have hope, and injustice shuts its mouth. Blessed is the one whom God corrects. So do not despise the discipline of the Almighty. For he wounds, but he also binds up. He injures, but his hands also heal. From 6 calamities he will rescue you. And 7, no harm will come to you. In famine, he will deliver you from death. Okay? And in battle, from the stroke of the sword. You will be protected from the lash of the tongue, and need not fear when destruction comes. That reading from Job chapter 5, verses 15 to 21. Now, Sunday morning, little Angel is here. She's writing about the program we recently launched, Woke. Dear George, the recently launched program, Woke, on GrenadaBroadcast.com revealed leadership qualities among our youth. Their intention to act as voices for the voiceless, crusaders and promoters of unity, justice, and equality should be applauded. Providing a conducive environment for young people and giving them opportunities to make a positive difference in society by the host of the program and the youth themselves is commendable. Forming a caucus to educate the young and old on human rights and the Grenada Constitution is also a much welcome gesture and couldn't have occurred at a better time. It was observed that in order to debate the Constitution, its contents must be known, even though it may be prudent to introduce it in schools during more formative years. The importance and power of education cannot be overemphasized, and these young advocates made that quite clear. Woke's third episode on March 28, 2019, which, among other things, featured human rights and the rule of law, is a discussion which needs to be promoted much more within Grenadian society. Grenadians need to be told and reminded of the rights which are theirs to keep. They must understand that they should not give anyone permission to take away those rights, and it is of paramount importance that those rights remain with them to be exercised at all times. The presenters also identified the neglect of human rights and the lack of equal opportunities for all as matters needing urgent attention in Grenada. Only conscious-minded individuals can make such observations, and this level of awareness needs to be more widespread. The injustices being displayed within the areas of health and labor and control of the media was also discussed. They were correctly described as infringements of human rights and more a display of dictatorship than democracy. One cannot help but wondering whether politicians ever think like these young people. The true purpose of government, The true purpose of government-led youth programs came in for questioning when presenters spoke of being stifled and observed the limited platforms that are currently available for them to discuss issues. They also recognized the loss of dignity and values, and that there was too much fear among Grenadians. To add to the discussion, these include fear of association and disassociation, fear to speak and to be heard, fear of speaking up in defense of individual rights, fear to oppose views and support views, fear of raising concerns, fear of being open and honest. All three participants on March 28th agreed that there is currently no separation of powers between the judicial, the legislative, and the executive arms of government. They also made an interesting observation that support for a political party should never get in the way of performing a job, especially a paying job. They also highlighted the importance of voting wisely and called for what was described as a political reset. These young individuals should be complimented and encouraged in their efforts to reach out and assist Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique to become free and fair societies. Signed, Little Angel. That contribution this morning from Little Angel refers to a program which we've now done 4 editions, so that started about a month ago. Every Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock, I have these youngsters come in here and sit here with us, and I remain in the background. They discuss topical issues among themselves. And let me tell you, they have sparked a lot of interest in this place. As you listen to these youngsters, you learn a little bit about where the mindset of our youth in this country is today. And you'd be surprised at how creative these folks are, how well they think out their issues, and how determined they are to make a difference. So if you haven't yet had a chance to hear them, one, make sure that you join us this coming Thursday afternoon and every Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock. And for those of you who may be interested in the 4 programs that they've done so far, right on the GRENADABROADCAST.com website in the archive section, you'll see Woke with 1, 2, 3 exclamation marks. Click on that and you'll get to see those 4 editions. You can sit and watch at your leisure. Now, Wayne Francis is saying good morning. I haven't seen this one before. Vera Boo. Hello, Vera Boo. Boo to you too, Vera. Good morning, Vera, and good morning, Wayne. Thanks a lot for joining us. Okie doke. Let's take a little break here, and we'll come on back.
Grenadian General Insurance Company, strength and stability. Grenadian General Insurance Company, tell your friends, tell your family. We cover householders comprehensive, motor and even fire too. Contractors all risk burglary, public liability, professional indemnity, directors liability, and wait, we still have more. Come and find out more what you're waiting for.
We are located on Scott Street, St. George's. For more information, call 440-2434.
Tell everybody.
Conveniently located in the GRENADA Shopping Center, for over 40 years, Food Fair has provided quality service at affordable prices. Now, grocery shopping is made easier and more convenient from the Food Fair web store.
Hey, babe. Listen, I need you to go down to Food Fair to get some groceries.
All right, no problem. Right away.
Thanks, babe. What are you doing? You're supposed to be going Food Fair to get a grocery, man.
I am, but didn't you know you can order your groceries online from the Food Fair web store?
Are you serious?
Of course. All you have to do is just to log on to www.foodfair.gd with credit card in hand, and with an order of $100 or more, Food Fair Grenadians will deliver up to 3 miles away. And you don't even have to worry about your information, you know. Their safety measures are excellent.
So hold on. You just order online and Food Fair will deliver to you?
Yep.
Oh, baby, better hurry up and order, man.
I already did. They should be here any minute now.
Enjoy easy online shopping anytime from your home or office from the Food Fair web store. Food Fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets.
Together with you, our customers, we energize our community.
Together with you, we energize our economy.
We are working together to give our nation a better tomorrow.
With you, we energize our future. Together, we energize our nation.
Thank you for partnering with us as we energize our SBA'S.
GRENLEC, energizing our Grenada.
All right, it's 9:30 already, believe it or not. Just before we get to the editorials, folks, mentioned to you at the top of the program this morning that yesterday Georgie Porgy was downtown shooting some stuff, and I want to share some of that with you this morning. These are 2 very, very short clips. The first one will show you some of the ornaments. You know, one of the things that's lacking in the tourism product as far as the vending community is concerned is diversity. And this lady came up with a very creative way of presenting little ornaments, mementos, if you will. She made these magnets that you clip onto your refrigerator rather than just a piece of steel, bam, on the refrigerator. No. She designed some little ornaments and stuck the magnet on the back of them so you slap that on your refrigerator. Take a quick look here at some of them. We hold the key, you hold the key to my heart. Peace and love. Another day, another duck. Huh? There she's talking about cricket, obviously. Another day, another duck. And you saw the one there with the cricket bat and all of that. But the one that really caught my attention, and take a look at this. It's only about 10, 11 seconds long, okay? She made one of those magnets with a little spice basket, okay? And that spice basket, things like cloves, cinnamon, nutmegs, etc., etc. And at the back of the spice basket, she actually attached a magnet. So, and these are real spices, not ornaments, okay? Take a look. There you go. That's the little spice basket. And there are the spices, and she's going to turn it around. There you go. See the little magnet? So you just place that on your refrigerator. Ain't that neat? Creative? I hope she does well. Okie doke. Now, Shabba Regis is saying good morning to you folks. And my dear friends, let us now get into the editorials, okay? The Grenada Advocate, which was published on Wednesday this past week, carried the following editorial. Captioned, "Good luck to Skerritt and Shallow." There's a new president of Cricket West Indies, and with that comes new expectations that the game in the Caribbean stands a chance of going one step further ahead. We say this because of what was promised in the lead-up to the election of Mr. Ricky Skerritt and his running partner, Dr. Kishore Shallow, to the top positions. Both Mr. Skerritt and Mr. Shallow defeated Dave Cameron and his deputy, Emmanuel Nanthan, in the recent elections. A good sign as the region looks to assess the outcome of the elections is that West Indies cricket has registered some positives in recent times. Perhaps the most telling is the 2-1 series win against England, who were in the Caribbean just 2 months ago. That victory in the Test series was followed by a 2-2 draw in the 50-over matches, thereby ensuring that it was a rewarding 2 series for the West Indies. Where the side featured was in the where the side faltered was in the T20 matches, having lost all 3 games to the English. However, there is nothing like success, and Caribbean cricket fans who have been thirsty for it got their wishes with a team's triumph over England. When it is considered that the English are rated higher than the Caribbean side, then that made our success even more significant. This did not go down well with the English and their supporters, and the point was made in a previous editorial how some of their connections tried to malign the Windies. This was done simply because the English were outplayed in every department except for that final Test match in St. Lucia, which they won. But like most other things, this must not be a period for all the stakeholders, administrators, managers, cricketers, supporters to rest on their laurels simply because of the recent victories. The team must remain focused, and having put the recent victories behind them, they have to come back fresh and be ready for the battles at hand. They are fully aware that others, including the top teams, will be gunning for them, and the Caribbean side has to be prepared. Their next major assignment will be the Cricket World Cup, which comes off in England. Having drawn the 50-over competition with England, the Windies have a good chance, as any of the others, in not only doing well, but winning that competition and keeping the momentum of our cricket going. This is what will confront the new management duo, Mr. Skerritt and Dr. Shallow. The roadmap, which they outlined and spoke to so eloquently in their campaigns, will be put to the test, and most people will want to see the results from the plans the two men were promoting. It is a reality that cricket is played in the middle. However, much of what goes on in the dressing room and even the boardroom can impact on the game. Cricket, to a number of people in the Caribbean, is like a religion, and the moment the West Indies lose a match, people resort to calling for the head of the captain, the coaches, and the management of the game. We wish Mr. Skerritt and Dr. Shallow all the best in their new roles as the managers of Cricket West Indies and the success that follows them. And that success follows them. Pilgrims, there you have it, the editorial which appeared in Wednesday's edition of the Grenada Advocate. Now you understand, Winty, why I said that you would like to hear that editorial this morning? Let me see here. Yeah, he's still there. Tessa Barry's also online this morning. Hasn't said anything. Neither has Philip Jack, but they're there. And so is Dennis. Good to see you folks out there. Thank you very much for joining us. And turn around here. Pele Darp. Pele. Hey, Guy, you're becoming kind of regular around here. That makes us feel really good. Thank you very much. Pele Darbo saying good morning, folks. Anthony DeRiggs saying he's hearing us loud and clear on my morning walk in Brooklyn. Ain't that nice? Technology, eh? Technology. Well, from what Margaret said, you have a wonderful day to be out there on the streets of Brooklyn this morning. Thanks again for joining us. Now, where are we? Yeah, let's take a little break here and come on back.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try their sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Start the stride to a healthy lifestyle at the 2019 annual Pump It Up Family Fun Walk. There'll be more fun, more smiles, and more prizes for families and friends. Join us in Carriacou on April 7th at 4 p.m. as we walk from the Harveyvale playing field to the Hillsborough tennis court. And in Grenada on April 28th at 4 p.m. from the Montrouge playing field to the National Cricket Stadium. Packages cost $20 per person for up to 2 individuals and $15 per person for groups of 3 or more. Come out in your numbers to help us raise funds towards re-establishing the Carlton Home.
Welcome home.
Yeah, let me direct this specifically to John and Valerie out there in Carriacou. A couple of my friends are up there this weekend for the annual Pump It Up Fun Walk, and I certainly hope that you guys get out there. Look for a young lady by the name of Deanna Lashley and tell them I said that I wanted you to say hi to her, okay? Fun Walk is going to start at 4 o'clock this afternoon, and I certainly hope that you guys have a great time. John, by the way, you need the exercise, don't you? Take your little puppy with you. Now, Ryan is also saying good morning from Orlando. Beverly Charles is with us, and Meckerman Alexander is wishing us a blessed day. Folks, it's now 19 minutes away from the hour. Let us turn to this week's edition of The New Today, which came out on Friday. It is captioned, just one word, recklessness. What exactly is Grenada's position on the current political unrest in Venezuela? In the last 2 weeks, Foreign Minister Peter David held a press conference and stated that Grenada is fully in support of CARICOM's position on Venezuela, which involves a negotiated and peaceful settlement involving the two warring sides in Caracas and not the planned removal of the Maduro government by outside forces. Days later, the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Alan Chastanet, said that CARICOM itself was very much divided on the Venezuelan situation. Chastanet was responding to criticisms leveled at him and other CARICOM prime ministers who went to the United States to meet with President Donald Trump at his residence in Florida to discuss a range of issues, including the situation in Venezuela. The Keith Mitchell-led government itself has not been giving a clear signal on its exact position on the chaotic situation in Caracas. Grenada is a member of the Venezuela-promoted group known as ALBA, and on 2 occasions chose to abstain on critical votes in the uncertain situation in the country. Other ALBA members in the English-speaking Caribbean, like St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Antigua, have been consistent with their vote on the political situation in Venezuela, and specifically in favor of Maduro. But unlike Grenada, which is pussyfooting, the Venezuelans must be taking careful note of the Grenada position, given the amount of assistance that Caracas has been giving to the island, especially through the Petrocaribe arrangement with oil and gas on concessionary terms. A very flimsy excuse was given from quarters known to be friendly to government in seeking to explain Grenada's abstention on the last vote in the Organization of American States on continued humanitarian aid by the opposition forces into Venezuela. The explanation that was given is that Grenada's representative is not yet accredited to the OAS and could not take part in the critical vote. However, an experienced diplomat was quick to point out that this was not a problem, since Grenada had the option of sending one of its senior ambassadors, along with a diplomatic note from St. George's, to cast a definitive vote instead of abstaining once more on the Venezuelan issue that was under discussion. It is time for Foreign Minister Peter David to back up his often-mouthed support and his so-called personal friendship with Maduro with substance and not old talk. The Mitchell-led government also had a bad score sheet this week over its failure to send a representative to the state funeral given to the retired Grenada-born Court of Appeal Justice Albert Redhead in Antigua. The funeral was attended by top government, opposition, and judicial officials in the sub-regional grouping known as the OECS, including judges and over 200 lawyers from as far away as Canada and Belize. The Redhead family felt slighted and hurt by the manner in which this son of the soil, who excelled at the regional level, was virtually ignored by the government of his homeland. The New Today is fully aware of the thousands of dollars worth of medical supplies given by the Redhead family to the Ministry of Health, and in particular to the St. George's General Hospital over the years, especially under the current government of Prime Minister Mitchell. As one family member lamented, the late Court of Appeal judge and his wife, June, flew into Grenada within days of the widespread devastation of the island by Hurricane Ivan in September 2004, and personally handed over supplies to Prime Minister Mitchell at his private residence at Happy Hill. To add insult to injury, the family member recalled the many visits to Grenada paid by the late Redhead on Court of Appeal business, and often approached by Prime Minister Mitchell for legal advice on a number of important state matters. The government could have at least sent the Attorney General or the Minister of Legal Affairs to Antigua to represent the island at the official funeral given to the late Court of Appeal Justice. That aside, the New Today is very thankful that citizens who feel wronged by the actions of their own government can still go to a court of law and seek redress. The proof of this is in the two recent decisions handed down by courts against the actions of Prime Minister Mitchell on two senior public officers, former Cabinet Secretary Gemma Bain-Thomas and former Commissioner of Police Willan Thomson. The clear ruling from the court is that the Prime Minister acted recklessly in removing Thomson and Bain-Thomas from their positions at tremendous cost to the taxpayers of the country. The effect of the high-handed manner in which the ex-Cabinet Secretary was bundled out of her office will result in the Treasury having to pay the goodly lady over $700,000 for the breach of her constitutional rights. On Monday, a High Court judge, Justice Roberts, delivered a ruling to the effect that PM Mitchell erred in the manner in which he removed the island's Commissioner of Police from office following NNP's 15-zip victory at the 2013 general election. If there is a real need for constitutional change, is now for the financial burden to be shifted away from the Treasury and slapped on those who take these reckless decisions at the expense of taxpayers of this country. That, Pilgrims, is your editorial from the New Today. Takes us now to 11 minutes away from 10 o'clock. Nixon Mitchell says, that's simple, Grenada National Information. Okay. Ian Roberts says CARICOM leaders need to find their voice and demonstrate without equivocation that CARICOM stands with Venezuela and to be seen and heard doing so. Ryan Jaban says Grenada must not be a cohort of regime change in Venezuela. Lawrence Kruthoff says, good morning, George. I'm here watching and listening in Grand Bras. Oh, he's in Grenada. Hey, Grand Bras. My granny lived right there years and years ago. And he said, yes, he did share the program this morning. Thank you very much. Wayne Francis says, that man is a tyrant, an evil force that is starving his own people to death. How can anyone support this? Ian Roberts says, the Caribbean is a zone of peace, period. Ryan says, had fun last night at GAECO, G-A-E-C-O. I think that's an organization which supports Grenada out there in Florida. Taste of Grenada dinner and dance fundraiser for Grenada National Patient Kidney Foundation. That's what I thought. Okay, and let's see here. Sharon, hello, Sharon. She's still out there in Florida, saying good morning. Clive Joseph Ramdeen, good morning to you, Mr. George, and all watching and listening to your program. Sending my blessings from Berkeley, California. One love, always. One love to you, too, bro. You're up early. It's, what, 6:51 in Berkeley, California right now? Well, thank you very much for getting out of bed that early on a Sunday morning. And Glenn Andrew Mark says, the PM is vindictive. Yes. The longest rope has an end. He should be paying them out of his own pocket, not taxpayers. So wrong. So says Glenn Andrew Mark. Okay, folks. Georgie Porgie's going to take another little break here. And then we'll come back and start getting into real brass tacks, if you will. Okay? Back after this.
Boyo, they gonna fly with kite now. The wind picking up. I'm coming. Karim, what you doing? Fly my kite. Yeah, but not here. You can't fly kite near power lines, boy. Why not? The wind good. Because mommy say, kite threads conduct electricity. Yeah, kite. He's right. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, you can cause power outages, or even worse, it can get shocked. Come, let's go and fly them in the pasture. Yeah, that makes sense. Kite threads conduct electricity. Do not fly kites near overhead power lines. This can lead to electric shocks and power outages. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, do not try to retrieve it. Release it and call GRENADA. Always fly kites in open areas. Keep your kites far away from roads. And remember, always clean up after yourself.
GRENADA, energizing our Grenada.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Start the stride to a healthy lifestyle at the 2019 annual Pump It Up Family Fun Walk. There'll be more fun, more smiles, and more prizes for families and friends. Join us in Carrickoo on April 7th at 4 p.m. as we walk from the Harveyvale playing field to the Hillsborough tennis court. And in Grenada on April 28th at 4 p.m. from the Montrouge playing field to the National Cricket Stadium. Packages cost $20 per person for up to 2 individuals and $15 per person for groups of 3 or more. Come out in your numbers to help us raise funds towards re-establishing the Carlton home.
Welcome home.
Here we go. Folks, for a couple of years now, the ECCB has been doing a little weekly magazine called ECCB Connects, okay? It's usually a 15-minute sort of video presentation about what's going on within the ECCB, the ECCU, through the ECCB. And lately, they've been dealing quite a bit with the impending digital currency. They want to make sure that we all understand the idiosyncrasies and the benefits of digital currency. And in recent weeks, they put out a couple of issues, one of which we played for you last week. And I want to play the second one for you today. I know it's going to take a little while getting used to, like everything else, but better to learn right now than to find yourself up a creek when you start running into issues with the digital currency. So let's take a look at this.
Hi, and welcome to the final episode of Season 9 of ECCB Connects. On this episode, we'll speak with Sybil Welch, chairperson of the ECCB FinTech Working Group, about the EC Digital Currency Pilot Project. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The Credit Union Movement of Dominica congratulates the ECCB on its quest to pilot the world's first digital currency to be issued by a central bank. This visionary stride augurs well for the creation and facilitation of innovative financial solutions that is needed in this current digital age. It is our expectation that the digital version of our very stable EC currency will not only induce seamless transfers between our members, merchants and other institutions, but that these efforts will go a long way in assisting the region to mitigate against the loss of corresponding banking relationships. We applaud the ECCB's vision and foresight. The Credit Union Movement of Dominica congratulates the resilience and financial inclusion within the region, and for this, the Movement of Dominica looks forward to partnering with the ECCB and will continue to seek synergies with the strategic ambitions of the ECCB as outlined in its 2017-2021 strategic plan.
The pilot project of the ECCB digital currency is a long-awaited innovative way that I am sure will be beneficial to both public and the business community in the OECS.
Sybil, welcome to ECCB Connects.
Thank you, Karina. It's my pleasure.
The ECCB recently launched its digital EC currency pilot project, which will see the ECCB issuing a digital version of the EC dollar. Tell us, what exactly is a digital currency?
A digital currency, as the name suggests, is not something that you can feel and touch, but it is actually something that would provide the same sort of value that you would get in a physical construct. So the digital EC currency that is part of the pilot project, it will be a secure, sovereign, so we're talking about legal tender. This is not play money. It will be frictionless, which means a lot of the sort of obstacles and high costs that one associates with some of our current payment constructs, so for the debit cards or for wire transfers, or even the ability to move money across the waters, then you have to pay shipping in the physical realm. The digital will make it frictionless in that sense. It will be legal tender, and it will be facilitated via digital wallets. That digital wallet is really an application that is on your smart device. And you know, we have all of these apps that we download. Well, consider the similar issue. That application will store the private and public keys, and I'm getting a little technical, but just to say that these allow for your financial assets to move, to facilitate payments, to facilitate transfers, to be able to check the balances on that digital application, as well as to do any other approved activities within the digital ecosystem for the pilot project. So it's sovereign, EC currency in a digital form.
Sybil, why the project at this time? Why has the ECCB chosen now to embark on such an undertaking?
Well, it comes on the heels of the bank's 5-year strategic plan, 2017 to 2021. And that strategic plan is embedded in the issue of transformation of the ECCU economy. And when you look at 2 of the goals, it speaks about a strong, resilient, diversified financial system. And part of building resilience is really to have what the technical term is redundancy, say options. So that if you have more than one payment system construct, if one is not facilitating the needs of one target group, you have choices. So we needed to look at how do we have options to drive business growth, to drive competitiveness, to drive resilience, and to drive financial inclusion. All of these things ask us, what are we doing as an institution and as a region? And then we get to our goal, our other goal, goal 4 of the strategic plan, that speaks about driving economic growth and development of the member territories. And that is also not only in the strategic plan, but in the ECCB Agreement Act of 1983. It mandates the bank not only to look at money and credit and monetary stability and financial stability, but recognizing that there is a whole network or interplay between stability, growth and development. So we're really looking at the problems and saying, how can we find innovative solutions? And in this era of technology, we have looked to technology for a solution. Hence, the digital currency pilot project.
So you spoke about transformation and the ECCB's thrust to drive economic growth and how this is going to help small businesses, medium businesses, and the consumers. This is something that the people can look forward to.
Certainly. And when we think about it, we always ask the question, what is in it for me? So here's the consumer asking that question. Here's the merchant. Here's the financial institution. Here's the household. All of these customer segments are asking. And what we can talk about from the household perspective, we can say, listen, you are going to have a payment system that is easy to use. You are able to track your financial activities, so you can have a digital record. That goes into budgeting and managing your finances and being able to, when you go to an institution for credit and they ask about what are your transactions, you have something that you can download that looks professional and organized.
Yes.
For the merchants, they're going to get operational efficiencies. Think about the times businesses stay behind after working hours to reconcile or count up all the cash and count up all the checks and reconcile them. This now is seamless because now everything is online, everything is being aggregated online, and then you have that record. You're able then to see seamlessly what's going on. It also allows for business expansion. If you're a merchant, you tend sometimes, unless you have an online presence, some infrastructure online to facilitate getting your credit card payments or the wire transfers costs that you might have to engage in. This allows you now to be able to engage customers outside of your country, but within the 8 member territories of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, and allow for them and you to transact by you sending the goods and they sending the money from their wallet to your wallet. When you think about it for financial institutions, there's also a benefit. Whether you're a commercial bank or a credit union, first of all, if people's lives are being enriched, they're finding new ways to create wealth, it's going to redound to the benefit of the financial institutions. Because this is a payments construct, but it is not a replacement for savings. So their earnings, they will know how much I want to put in my liquid commitments. That is your regular cash flow transactions. How much do I want to put in my savings? And then not only just savings, but it also be business expansion. The more businesses expand, is the more they would rely on the financial institutions for credit.
Sybil, so how does the digital currency actually get into the hands of the people? How does it get into the financial sphere?
The EC currency currently goes through financial institutions. So the channel is ECCB issues currency to financial institutions. Financial institutions now make sure it's accessible to the public. And so that will be a similar construct that we'll be following. So credit unions, commercial banks, approved financial institutions will be able, therefore, to access the digital currency from the ECCB. And they will be the distribution channels to the public. And that's really that seamless way of persons already have their own familiarity with their personal financial institution, and so we maintain that relationship. There are other ways, too, that they can access it. Approved digital wallet service providers who are not financial institutions, but who are providing the ability for persons to cash in their EC physical currency and cash out on their smart device their digital EC currency.
Let's move now to the pilot itself. Tell us more. How will this be rolled out?
Well, the pilot is for 18 months. And the first 12 months, so we can imagine from March to February next year, we are in the development stage. We will be doing a lot of consultations with the public, with those customer segments, financial institutions, merchants, households. All of these customers will really influence the development of this solution because it's a solution for customers. And so they have to be part and parcel in the design and implementation of the solution. And so we'll be doing that, and interviews like these are the start of the sensitization process. And then we go into live deployment. where we will have real people, real merchants, real financial institutions, real money, real digital EC currency being issued and circulated so it can transact, buying real goods and services.
Sybil, you spoke about the rollout of the project. Will all of the countries of the ECCU region be involved in this?
All will be involved, but there are various stages of involvement. So in the sensitization, in the awareness, in making sure we get the feedback, we will be in all countries. In relation to the pilot, we will be in select countries. And the reason is it's a pilot. And so you want to keep it as manageable as possible to allow for that active engagement. And so part of the whole pilot issue is to make sure that you keep it manageable, but the information out of the pilot will be disseminated to all member countries. So whether you are directly involved or not, you will still feel the energy of this digital currency that is on its way to you.
If I'm a business owner, if I'm an individual, how do I become part of this action?
We will be doing a call, going around the islands, having sensitization sessions, talking to persons. When we're doing the testing, we're going to have select groups from those persons to then say, listen, tell us how this digital wallet application is working for you, how it feels when you press or when you do whatever activity. Is it really meeting how you would relate to technology? Is it seamless? Is it easy? Is it giving you that experience, that user experience that will make you want to keep using it? Those are the sorts of information that will help to ensure that what we end up with is a product that is at the top level of design. So we talk about design by consultation. Design is important to the success. User experience is important to the success. How do we know that? How do we get that information? How do we get that feedback? By going to the people. And that's really what it's all about. Their feedback are gifts to make sure that the project is a success.
Sybil, thanks for speaking with us today on ECCB Connects.
It's been my pleasure, and I look forward to engaging ECCB Connects to get out to the people of the region to talk about their currency now coming in digital form.
I would like to say that I definitely endorse the move towards a digital currency by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. I believe that our region needs to make more use and take more opportunity of what digital technology affords us. And the bank in moving in this direction, I believe, the bank in making this move certainly is demonstrating that it has confidence in technology and in the people of the region to subscribe to this technology as we move forward.
This brings us to the end of this episode and Season 9 of ECCB Connects. While we're on break, be sure to stay connected with us via Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Join us in May for new and exciting episodes when we'll share with you who we are, what we do, and how we serve you. Thanks for watching.
All right, thank you very much to the ECCB for that presentation. Now, there are a couple of comments here on Facebook. First of all, Benedict Cador says, what is the uniqueness of the digital currency? I cannot yet see the difference between that and a debit or credit card, etc. Benedict, let me tell you, I understand where you're coming from, and this is still pretty much new to the region, and you can expect, I bet your bottom currency, you're going to be hearing a lot more from the ECCB as they get feedback from the people of the OECS. So I'm sure they're going to be explaining all of that in detail in the days and weeks and months ahead. There's also a comment here from Ian Roberts. He says economic growth can only happen when resources are controlled. Land, everything comes from the land. If government allows foreign ownership of land, how can we develop resources that we do not control? Foreign development, gentrification leads to privatization. We must control our land. For example, lease hotel land and avoid foreign ownership. Point taken, Ian. And that gives me an opportunity to direct you to an article which I republished yesterday on this website, Grenada Broadcast. That's captioned, Colonialism, Alive and Well in the Caribbean. If you got a moment this afternoon after today's program, folks, go check that out. It's actually right in the center of the page there right now. Colonialism, Alive and Well in the Caribbean. Check that out. Very, very impactful story that was published a couple of days ago. Okay, let me see here. Margaret Redhead Fletcher says, and I'm reading this for the first time, as a simple housewife who goes to the bank, withdraws $300 from my weekend, for my weekend shopping. How and what money would I get in my hand to go to the market to buy my vegetables from various vendors? How and what do I take in currency to the butcher to purchase meats? Please tell us, simple people, how we will manage our daily currency shopping at supermarkets, etc. Margaret, good point. Good point. I am hopeful that a lot of these questions, if not all of them, will be responded to by the ECCB. Thank you very much, Pilgrims. Hey, break time. Take a little break here, and then we shall come on back right after this.
Grenadian General Insurance Company, strength and stability. Grenadian General Insurance Company, tell your friends, tell your family. We cover householders comprehensive, motor and even fire too. Contractors all risk burglary, public liability, professional indemnity, directors liability, and wait, we still have more. Come and find out more what you're waiting for.
We are located on Scott Street, St. George's. For more information, call 440-2434.
Tell everybody.
Conveniently located in the GRENADA Shopping Center, for over 40 years, Food Fair has provided quality service at affordable prices. Now, grocery shopping is made easier and more convenient from the Food Fair web store.
Hey, babe. Listen, I need you to go down to Food Fair to get some groceries.
All right, no problem. Right away.
Thanks, babe. What are you doing? You're supposed to be going Food Fair to get a grocery, man.
I am, but didn't you know you can order your groceries online from the Food Fair web store?
Are you serious?
Of course. All you have to do is just to log on to www.foodfair.gd with credit card in hand, and with an order of $100 or more, Food Fair Grenadians will deliver up to 3 miles away. And you don't even have to worry about your information, you know. Their safety measures are excellent.
So hold on. You just order online and Food Fair will deliver to you?
Yep.
Oh, baby, better hurry up and order, man.
I already did. They should be here any minute now.
Enjoy easy online shopping anytime from your home or office from the Food Fair web store. Food Fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets.
Together with you, our customers, we energize our community.
Together with you, we energize our economy.
We are working together to give our nation a better tomorrow.
With you, we energize our future. Together, we energize our nation.
Thank you for partnering with us as we energize our SBA'S.
GRENADA, energizing our Grenada.
Okie dokie, folks. It is now 10:15, and time now to move on to our next segment, which is a rebroadcast of a segment from this past Friday's Good Day Grenada. My guest was Mr. Brian Pitt, and Brian had some comments about the SBA papers, the correcting of the SBA papers. Also talked about the upcoming secondary school sports. And that conversation we had just minutes before the sports began. Just bear that in mind, okay? Because the sports was held on Friday, starting Friday morning. So check out Brian. Alrighty, folks, let me make myself very comfortable here because it's going to be an interesting morning with Mr. Pitt. Good morning to you, Mr. Pitt. How are you, sir?
Good morning, George. I am doing very well, George. My head is in the condition it's in because my hair was giving some difficulty combing in the morning, and I wanted to get ready as quickly as possible for this show this morning, George. So I took it all off.
You chose.
I missed my afro, but I took it all off.
You chose to give preference to your hair rather than your coordinated wardrobe, blue.
I was going to get to that, George. I have 4 adult children who insist that I am well coordinated for the day. And even though they don't live here, via WhatsApp, they tell me what to wear in the morning, and I'm grateful to them for that.
Well, congratulations. So your kids are obviously very creative, and their hard work's paying off on you. Brian,
yes.
Listen, man, you going down to Queen's Park in a little while?
No, George.
That's
call it a one-man protest.
I find it hard to believe, but this man is at a loss for words this morning. He says,
yes, George, because there's all kinds of stuff going through my head about this event that is taking place today, and I guess we're going to get to some of them in a minute. But I was just listening to a report by the minister on social media. And by the way, George, I want to get to a conversation at some point about how people get their news and information in Grenada. And the minister was talking about this SBA problem. And I believe it was a report from GBN or whoever, I'm not sure, I don't recall now, but she was suggesting a certain protocol in regards to the correction of SBA'S. And I'm listening to her, and there was an opposite opinion from somebody out of Barbados on this SBA issue. And I couldn't help but think whether or not the minister got a legal opinion on what she was putting forward. I'll tell you why I say that, George. I think it was last week we talked about judgments against the government of Grenada and whether or not the government of Grenada can be paid. And I think I mentioned on this program many moons ago that a former member of this government suggested to me that government can make your life as uncomfortable as possible. And they know that if you take them to court, you will win, but they don't have to pay. If the minister did not get legal advice on this issue as to the correction of SBA'S, and my research tells me that the SBA'S are a requirement of CXC. I'm not a lawyer, but the teachers can help the kids prepare the SBA'S, but they don't necessarily have a commitment to mark those SBA'S. That is assigned via CXC. But let's just suppose this matter goes to court and the government loses. Pays, George, again, it's the Treasury. And the minister is saying what she's saying because she can say it, not necessarily because it's right or legal. And that is what was going through my mind when I listened to her this morning. And I said, Lord of mercy, I hope the Attorney General gave some legal opinion on this matter. Because her intent was to make the teachers look as bad as possible. And that is not good, George.
It's not, but it's been a trend for the last several months right now. But the ray of hope that I have is that somehow it appears that the general public is really not buying into it.
Well, I hope so. And it gets me to another interesting point before we get to the sports, George. I note a press release from the Conference of Churches. And I was perplexed.
You're lucky, Brian. You got a press release from the Conference of Churches. I have.
No, I didn't get a release. I think it was on social media again.
Ah, well, I certainly did send it my way.
I picked up, well, maybe you're not in the good books, George. Are you a practicing good Catholic or good Christian, George?
No, sir. Well, I'm a good Christian, but I'm not practicing Catholic.
Well, that's the problem, George. You're supposed to go worship in a place.
Oh, I see.
Maybe a good Christian don't worship at home.
Ah, I see. Well, I hope nobody's holding their breath on that one. Okay.
But listen, no, there was this release. It was attributed to the Conference of Churches, talking about this whole issue about teachers. I don't believe they use the words of not having the interests of our children at heart, but it referred to teachers and the concern that they should have about the well-being and education of our children. And I recall sometime last year, George, the Roman Catholic bishop had some dealing with the two sides and invited them back to the table, if I'm not mistaken, George. And that was before the government decided to remove monies from the teachers' pay. Bishop got involved and said that, you guys got to get back on the table and have the conversation going. And then government removed some money from the teacher's salary. And if I'm not mistaken, again, George, I stand corrected, this quotation was attributed to the bishop. How can you invite people back to the table and remove the food? And repeat that, George. How can you invite the people back to the table and remove the food? Do you remember that?
Yes, sir. I do.
So who has removed the food? And if the food is the people's money, then you start from a position that government is wrong. That is my assessment, George.
Yeah.
And give it to Bishop Harris, I think his name. It was an attempt to say, listen, guys, this is not good. It's not right. You should not be doing this if we want to have a conversation that will be fruitful from both parties. And George, maybe we have short memories, we just forget what we write sometimes. And we don't understand how important social media is, and that everything we write and or record is there for prosperity. We can pull it up at any point in time. As a matter of fact, a good tech person tell me, Brian, you can't delete nothing on the internet. Yeah. So I think this whole idea of this sports today and the impasse between teachers is a frightening thing, George. Now, I tell you, I might be biased in terms of teachers because I have a long teaching tradition in my family. My granduncle was a teacher. He was a head teacher. I have cousins who were teachers. My sister is a teacher. One of my daughters is a teacher. So I know the importance of teachers to our children. And I was reflecting again recently, George. In Grenada, in the last few years, we've had a problem with abuse of children, incest, and sexual abuse of our children. And George, you know who is the first line of defense in trying to find this problem within homes? The teacher. So when that kid goes to school, if the teacher is alerted to look for signs that will say to her, listen, maybe there could be a problem there in this child's life. If the child is not performing well in school, maybe there are marks on the child's body. So we have to, when we have to deal with some of these social issues, we have to bear that in mind when we're trying to defame our teachers and put the children against the teachers. That is not good. Hey, George?
Brian, you mentioned a little while ago that it's sort of unfortunate that the kids are caught in the middle of this and they're the ones paying the penalty. But I think something that people need to not forget is that this all started because teachers were being deprived of their pensions. That's where this started. Didn't just come out of the blue. So let us never forget that. And by the way, Margaret here in New York says, Brian, the SBA is also an issue in Trinidad. The TTUTA argues that it is a CXC thing and they're not contracted to work with CXC. They have now taken the Trinidad and Tobago government to court for payment for marking the scripts. Jamaica, it seems, has worked out a deal with their teachers in which they're paid 300 Jamaican dollars per script. Brian?
So it's an issue that is being litigated right now, and the consensus seemed to be, George, that is a CXC responsibility. So to try and lay blame for this on the teachers' work to rule, I think is dishonest. And again, if it is a dishonest move to say that the teachers are bad people, then it's wrong. You know, and Margaret is right. I mean, this thing will probably go through the court. I don't very much it will get through the court system, because I suspect that at some point in time, CXC is going to come in and say, listen, guys, this is our responsibility. Yeah, the teachers will help the kids prepare the SBA'S, but the marking of the final product is going to be a responsibility of CXC, and we're going to find a way to do this.
T.F. Richards is saying, George, CXC is saying that this part is a government thing. So you know where this is heading.
To the court.
To the court. What court, Brian?
Well, I mean, George, maybe finally the Privy Council.
Maybe finally what?
The Privy Council. We might get a fair judgment out of it. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, yeah, but Brian, how long we're going to have to wait?
No, but hopefully it will not get there, George. I suspect that with reasonable negotiations we can find an end to this.
TF also says, Brian, do you expect to get anything honest from a dishonest government?
George, you know, therein lies my problem with this sports today. I heard Beverly talking about soccer sports.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting, George, but athletes, good athletes, prefer not to have distraction. You get the maximum in your performance, the least distraction that you have. Absolutely. Because you prepared yourself for this moment, and for this moment, you want to perform at your best. You don't want to have to, you hope that you didn't overtrain, and you're focused on what you're going to do. So the less distraction you have, the better.
Yeah.
But George, when I heard of this halftime event, and by the way, I am not going to blame these artists, these guys who are going to perform, because the window for making money for these guys are very short. It could be small. It could be 1 year. Something completely different can happen next year. So that if government is prepared to pay you to perform, take the money. Yep. Take the money and run. Yeah. I believe that listen to the discussion. She's suggesting that Mr. Killer would not sing the song, pick up something and run with it, or take a shot and pick up something and run with it. But you know something, George? That tune is so popular that even if Mr. Killer ain't sing it, the children might sing it. To their own rhythm and beat, they might sing it because it's a popular thing, and it's a thing that they probably want to pick up the hurdles and run around the track. Brings me to the point, George. I consider this an abuse of our children. I'll tell you why. The minister and those responsible for putting on this halftime event are very well aware that our young people like to wine and jam. Mm-hmm. That is it. And if it takes an event to wine and jam to get you to the park, we're going to do that to make the teachers and the principals look bad. That is abusing our children, George.
I think the same point was made by Ray Roberts this week. He's suggesting that that's precisely what is happening. And I don't know whether he recalled it or not, but this week we also played a piece where the Prime Minister, in the run-up to the elections last year, was averse to the idea of calypsos and soca in Lent. And yet here we are. It now seems perfectly fine to do.
Well, maybe the Lenten season has changed to August, George.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe, you know, after our carnival in August, there'll be Lent. You know, we have the power to do a lot of things, you know. That might be one of them. Yeah. But, you know, George, it reminds me of the 60s and 70s. And I will tell you why I'm going there. In Canada recently, the local government in Ontario voted to increase the class sizes, which means that the students would get less attention. You know what happened yesterday, George? The students in Ontario, they formed 12 students or whatever it was, organized a protest online because it was not in their best interest. The students. I remember in the 60s and 70s, though, George, a lot of secondary schools in Grenada had leadership in those schools. And if this were to have happened back then, the schools would have organized a protest. The students would have organized a protest. And I hope that a lot of secondary schools are not lacking student leadership, because this attempt is not in the best interest of the students. Am I right, George?
Yes, absolutely. And Brian, don't be surprised if you see our youth beginning to respond. I don't know whether or not you're aware of a program that we started here a month ago called Woke. We had the most recent edition yesterday afternoon. And I get the point, I get the idea that these youngsters are totally frustrated to the point where they now deem it necessary to get off their butts and take action. So, you know, you're talking about an online protest. That's just the start. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if you see that type of thing spread to this area.
I wasn't talking, George, about an online protest, but organizing a protest online. Because something is, in the last few weeks, George, I've noticed, and I asked the question earlier, where do people get their news and information? There were certain newspapers that by Friday afternoon in Grenada, you couldn't find a copy. You go to the usual places, and you couldn't find a copy of this particular newspaper. And if you go to the market on Saturday morning, if you get there before 8 o'clock, you might get a copy. You know, most of those newspapers now seem to be staying on the shelves.
Yeah, and it's not just here.
No. So are people getting the information and the news through social media? You know, I don't know how many people look at this program, George, or listen to this program. But the amount of hits that certain items get on social media, I'm sure you're not enjoying that kind of success.
Yeah.
So we have to find a way to use the social media. And in the case of Ontario and the students there, the protest was organized online. And before you knew it, 600 secondary schools had the problem yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, George, we are all passing through this thing. Some people born every day and people die every day. What the conversation we are having now, the beneficiaries of this conversation will be the young people of this country, will be the students. At one point last week or the week before, George, you lamented that, you know, we're talking about all these issues and nobody's listening. But George, nobody's listening because we're not in protest.
Yeah, well, maybe.
They don't consider us relevant. However, if the people of tomorrow, the young people of this country, decided to take action, organize protests, not violent protests, organize protests, let your parliamentarians know how you feel, I bet you attitudes change.
I'm sure they will.
Because the conversation is all about getting reelected, George.
Yeah. The one thing I want to caution against, Brian, you have to be very selective. You're correct when you say that the move is on towards social media, but I think you need to be very, very cautious because there's a lot of misinformation being spread out there on social media. People have freedom to use it, they have the right to use it, and a lot of them are using it for the wrong purpose. Now, there's a note here from Margaret. She says, Brian, you're talking about students with a level of social and political consciousness. In your day, student councils were very active. I remember being in AHS, Anglican High School, and we organized protests as well.
Yeah. But George, you see those councils and the society, the geographical society, the historical society, etc., were organized by teachers. The students didn't organize that. So maybe the teachers need to take note of what they're doing and organize some extracurricular activities that will include historical societies, geographical societies, and those kinds of groups that can provide pressure, that can provide opposition, that can provide for their future. So the teachers have a responsibility.
Absolutely. Very interesting days ahead, BP. Very interesting days ahead, and I thank you for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. And I hope that the teachers are listening. The thing is, so many people are scared to take action in this day and age because of the victimization, ostracization, persecution that they're subject to, But I do believe that there are people, individuals who will emerge and get something going.
The teachers have a responsibility, George, and I think when all this is finished, that they will take on the responsibility very seriously and organize these extracurricular activities that will teach our young people how to lead and not always follow. Because the guys who are going down in Queen's Park today for the halftime show, they're following. And I just hope they don't take a sip and pick up something and run.
Nice way to end. Nice way to run, Brian. Nice way to run. Thank you very much, sir. All right, there you have it. Thank you very much. I did tell you that Brian had some very interesting points to make, and he certainly did. Folks, that's now going to take our time to, hey, let's see here. I want the accurate time. It's 10:38 and a half. And my next two guests are in-house, and we will get to them right after this.
Start the stride to a healthy lifestyle at the 2019 annual Pump It Up Family Fun Walk. There'll be more fun, more smiles, and more prizes for families and friends. Join us in Carrickoo on April 7th at 4 p.m. as we walk from the Harveyvale playing field to the Hillsborough tennis court. And in Grenada on April 28th at 4 p.m. from the Montrouge playing field to the National Cricket Stadium. Packages cost $20 per person for up to 2 individuals and $15 per person for groups of 3 or more. Come out in your numbers to help us raise funds towards re-establishing the Carlton Home.
Welcome home.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate, Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Okie doke, folks. Time now to say good morning to my in-house guest. I'm going to start with Mr. Rohan Phillip. There he is. Good morning, Mr. Phillip. Look into camera too and smile. Say good morning.
Morning, George.
Nice to see you, Rohan.
Thank you.
Been a little while, eh?
It has been, yes.
And you had to go into the court and do something to get your way back onto this program. Come on, Rohan.
And he's here kicking and screaming.
Kicking and screaming. Thank you so much for coming in here this morning. And sitting right next to Rohan is another familiar face. Look at that one. Look at that. Pink, you know. Pink. Pink. And that's not all. Wearing shorts this morning. Mr. William Joseph, how are you, buddy?
I greet thee well.
Huh?
I said I greet thee well.
You greatly well.
I greet thee well.
Oh, you greet thee well. Well, my goodness, I did not know thou wast a Roman. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm really glad to see both of you, and we're here to talk about a very interesting situation which has been developing here over a period of time, and that is the Grenadian taxpayer having to dig deeper into his pockets to pay for what is being described as the indiscretions of our government. Just last weekend, you heard a young lady on here by the name of Gemma. I'm sure she's going to love me for referring to her as a young lady. Gemma Baynes-Thomas, she was talking with us about what she has just been through, with the help of Mr. Rohan Phillip, whom you'll be hearing in just a minute. He's going to tell us the whole story. And just this past week, we also understand that someone else has won another case against our government, which, for all intents and purposes, will result and you and I having to dig just a little bit deeper again. Folks, Mr. Phillip has been the attorney for both of these clients. And I'm going to ask Rohan here to spend a little time. Let's start with the Gemma Bain-Thomas situation, Rohan. In a nutshell, could you explain to our viewers exactly what happened and what resulted in the action that you took, and what's likely to happen from here?
All right. Basically, the situation is this. There was a national election held in Grenada, as we would recall. That would have been in February, I think, of 2013. Immediately following prior to the election, Gemma was appointed and serving as the cabinet secretary, the secretary to the cabinet of Grenada. This is a post created and established by the Constitution of Grenada, and appointments to that post is done by the Governor General acting on the advice of the Public Service Commission. Following the election, as with any proper public servant, she attended at the Prime Minister-elect, then Prime Minister, with the necessary reports and so on. As part of that conversation, it was made known to her that the Prime Minister would wish to have persons he's comfortable with working with him. Bain-Thomas then indicated, while she's ready, willing, and able to perform her duties, she is prepared to step aside if that is what is necessary, so that the Prime Minister could be comfortable in constituting or forming his team. There was some initial discussion of an appropriate assignment. Evidently, with someone of Bain-Thomas's experience and seniority, in fact, she was, or the office of the Cabinet Secretary is the head of the public service. So it's the most senior public office in the country. There weren't many assignments that she could be properly put to, except she consented to them. Attempts were made, and in fact, she accepted an assignment to do with some level of public sector reform and so on, an area I think she's eminently qualified to treat with. That department falls under the portfolio of the Prime Minister, And before long, again, certain accusations and complaints were made, to the point where it was suggested that Mrs. Bain-Thomas was divulging information out of certain meetings and like allegations. And so Mr. Bain-Thomas asked to be relieved, properly so. I mean, you can't be functioning in an office and the person you report to, your supervisor, has those kind of concerns. She wrote numerous letters to the Public Service Commission. Many of them, if not all, went unanswered. And ultimately, she received communications after being asked to take leave, after being asked, granted leave, that she was being transferred definitively to the post of Executive Director to the Anti-Money Laundering Commission. Quite interestingly, that was a relatively new post, created by statute just a few years ago. An appointment to that office is by the Public Service Commission. So what did the Public Service Commission do? They appointed her to that post, or purported to appoint her, because as it turns out, it was clearly unconstitutional. And at the same time, a letter came from the Office of the Governor General indicating that she will be transferred from the Office of Secretary to the Cabinet to a post to be determined by the Public Service Commission. We were of the view that couldn't fly, and as such we brought proceedings claiming that the Governor General would have abdicated her responsibility to properly consider Ms. Bain-Thomas's case and make a transfer if that is what she determined was necessary upon the advice of the Public Service Commission. We made certain other claims in terms of damages and so on, declarations. Many of them was not granted at the High Court, for instance, but the trial judge did find that her removal from the Office of Cabinet Secretary was improper. But he went on to hold that her appointment to the Office of the Executive Director would be amount to an assignment of duties there. We were not happy with that, and so we challenged that ruling to the extent that he said that her appointment was a proper assignment. And the Court of Appeal agreed that the Public Service Commission did not have the power to appoint her as they did. While they hold the power to appoint to the Office of Executive Director, they clearly did not have the power to appoint someone coming from the Office of Secretary to the Cabinet to such a post. And in fact, such an appointment amounted, or was very likely to amount to, a demotion in office. There were a number of other exaggerating circumstances. I mean, for one, an officer in grade M, and we only have 2 such officers in Grenada, as head of the Public Service Commission, being transferred to a post where she was to report to an officer in grade L, a junior officer, albeit the Attorney General, but in the structure of the service, and that may be an area that need looking into. But as the current structure is, the Attorney General, when a public officer, is at grade L, and a junior officer in terms of rank to the Secretary to the Cabinet. And she found herself supposing to report to the Attorney General. I dare tell you, her experience was far different. She was reporting to much more junior staff. Instructions was coming to her from her assistant, rather than she giving her assistants instruction and the like. Well, I'm sure it happened before, because I tend to hold the view nothing is new under the sun.
Okay.
Any case you come across, there is one somewhere else. Many a times, though, many of these things don't get brought to the fore for one reason or another. And as such, the Court of Appeal found that she had been improperly removed, and her removal amounted to a termination of her service in the public service. What that meant, she was then to be compensated for the breach of a contract in the public service, and also to be compensated for the breach or infringement of a constitutional right, to be properly removed or to enjoy certain security of tenure while in the public service, and in particular holding such senior office. What flowed from that is that Ms. Bain-Thomas was granted both compensatory damages, that is damages to take care of her salary allowance and emoluments for the rest of her working life, that is until she's age 60, at which time she will then be entitled to her pension and gratuity. And lately, only March 12th past, the court found that she should have been awarded, that she should be granted vindicatory damages in the sum of $75,000. While that is a new high in the context of this type of case, and similarly Ms. Bain-Thomas is happy with it, I think it was rather conservative when one looked to the particular circumstances Ms. Bain-Thomas had to endure, her level of seniority and otherwise. But the reality, judges are usually rather conservative in this area of law, and it is a relatively new area. It is a relatively new area of law. And so while one would think that the case could have warranted a higher figure, one could equally understand why the learned master would have been inclined to grant as he did. Yes.
Do the laws here in Grenada allow for charges to be brought not only against the government, but also against managers who take illegal actions, you know, which wind up costing taxpayers money?
The area of law that will treat with that is really misfeasance in public office, which is an ancient, if I may say so, it's not the most modern of cause of actions. It has been very restrictive historically in terms of how one could make out a case or prove a case. I must say to you, though, that the Caribbean Court of Justice in recent times have seemingly make some inroads or some modernization to that area of law, which gives some hope. It's an area of law I have an interest in and I have been looking at, but at this point I cannot say that it's more than just some hope. For one, it is seemingly possible for such cases to be brought mainly by the government itself or by the Office of the Attorney General. The cases we have seen thus far, that was how they were brought. Usually on the change of the government, that's what we have seen, the Attorney General bringing cases against former managers of the system, ministers and otherwise. Whether that means it is the only way, I wouldn't say it is, but that's what has happened thus far. And as I said, it's an area of law like this general area, which is constitutional, judicial review, those kind of areas. The courts tend to be quite conservative, but we are seeing some rather enlightened rather, position coming particularly from the CCJ in the area of constitutional interpretation and that area. So there is some hope.
So there may have been some good to the CCJ after all.
There is always some good about the CCJ. I was always an advocate of the CCJ.
I think a lot of people were advocates.
But there were also issues with the process and the manner in which it was done.
Process.
I dare tell you, the first aspect of the Willan Thomson case, I know we may speak about that a little more, when the Court of Appeal ruled against us, had it been to the CCJ we were to appeal, we would have definitely filed an appeal. But we would have had to have recourse to the Privy Council. And for various reasons, it just wasn't practical. Key of which was the finances to do it.
Okay, so bottom line is that you're in at the tail end of this. You've been the one handling the two most recent cases, but I think history will show that this particular type of thing goes back quite a ways, because if I'm not mistaken, just over the last couple of weeks, government began paying out claims, not necessarily for wrongful dismissal, but claims that, you know, have come due as a result of court rulings.
That is my understanding.
Yeah. Okay.
We have seen, well, I have seen correspondence where they indicate that they were in the process of doing that, and they were asking various law firms, one who came to my chambers, to indicate what they may have had outstanding. Whether they have actually started paying, I don't know.
Okay. And that, sir, is the big issue, because as I understand it, let's take Gemma Baynes, for example. In the case of Gemma Baynes, the first ruling resulted in her being entitled to something like just under $700,000?
Correct.
Okay, and now you're adding another $75,000 on top of that. Gemma was sitting in the same chair you were sitting in last week, and I asked her, how hopeful is she? That you're smiling, Rohan. How hopeful is she that she's going to be seeing any of this stuff? And you know, she tried to be hopeful and paint a bright picture. There's a level of optimism, but deep down inside, if you took a good look at her, you could tell she's probably, you joke you're making, you know?
Well, we have to be mindful of the realities, and certainly of past experience. All our successive governments have had a history of not being very diligent in paying
claims,
debts, and judgments in particular. We, as it relates to this case, I must tell you, the engagement with the government continues. They have made a proposal. We have responded to the proposal. They were very actively pursuing my response to the proposal. So I'm left with no choice but to take all of this to mean that there is some high level of will or expectation. Goodwill that they will pay. The former Attorney General, I must say, congratulations to him and his efforts to advance the process of the quantification and so on of the damages. Again, my own experience, had it not been his own personal role and intervention, we may yet have not had a final figure. So we're grateful for that. And as I said, the engagement in fact continues in terms of the modality of payment and so on. And so we're hopeful.
Rohan,
and in light of the recent announcement that they're paying debts, we may just be part of that.
You may be part of that. He's quasi-optimistic, as is Gemma. Rohan, listen, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know whether I should be asking this question or not. But you mentioned that a proposal has been made to you. Are you at? Can you explain to us what that proposal is?
I would not go into the specifics.
Okay.
But it was a proposal, naturally, to pay the judgment debt by installments over a period of time. As the litigant, obviously, we want to be paid as soon as possible, in the fastest possible time. So a counter proposal was made, still to accept payment by installment, but requesting fewer installments and a higher payment sum by way of installments.
I have a question here from somebody who's listening to you in New York right now. Margaret Francis says, given the government's propensity not to pay, is it possible to put something like a lien on funds owed to the government by outside bodies, agencies, similar to what Taiwan did?
Well, it is possible. It is never easy to enforce a judgment against the state because the state, as we would appreciate, holds a special role in any society. A lien, or by other word, garnishing debts and so on, is one of the practices available to private citizens involved in civil litigation. I dare say, while there is laws that mandates the process by which judgments are to be enforced, again, we have seen certain pronouncement, and the Eric Gary case is one in point, where our highest court, the Privy Council, says when debts are owed by the government, in particular debts for breaches of constitutional rights, as the Gary case was, it is open to the court to find creative and innovative ways to bring remedy or bring relief to the litigants in terms of satisfying the debts. But again, as you would see, by merely citing the Eric Gary case, which came from the Privy Council, that was a case by way of enforcement. So if it is that there isn't that goodwill, yes, theoretically there are means of enforcing it, but it still means going through the whole process of litigation again. Because having decided what the judgment sum was in the Eric Gary case, when it was not paid, they had to start new proceedings, which took them all the way to the Privy Council to get to that quite enlightened judgment. So yes, there are certain avenues. It's not quite, or it may not operate quite in the same manner as the lien of which that person speak, but yes, you could get similar remedies.
Kipling Francis is asking, Mr. Rohan, is there, I'm not sure what this is, I hope you know, is there an FOIAI Grenada? If not, don't you think we badly need one? What's an FOIAI?
FO.
All right, Kipling, you stumped both. Do you know, Willie?
I don't.
No, none of us here know Kipling. Willan, come again, sir. All right, Rohan. So you've got your chin up, just as does Gemma, that something will happen. And
hopeful.
We have to be hopeful, notwithstanding the fact that this country, despite the 5% growth that we're hearing, we are still going through difficult economic times. You're led to believe that things are all hunky-dory. I mean, just this over the past couple of weeks, I had to deal with a situation where on one of my programs, somebody was raising the fact that even though the government says, man, we're making money, thanks to the structural adjustment program, there's income coming in, we've got some savings in the kitty, plus the CBI program, last year did over $400 million, whereas the year before it was only $160 million or whatever. Despite all of that, we're saying that we cannot pay the pensions and gratuity, and so on and so forth. So the question is, are we going to be able to meet these obligations? By the way, Bob Marishow says here, FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act.
No, we do not have such an act.
We do not have such an act here.
No.
Okay, that takes care of that. Anthony Howard is asking, can taxpayers take legal action against the government for failure to act in the public good?
We think they can. Obviously, it would mean identifying the issue and crafting a claim. But if a sufficiently serious issue is raised, I think it is possible to bring such an action. In that the government is there, or a government is there to serve, and if it is found that there is a breach or a lapse in a particular way, I think it is possible that individuals who are affected either privately or if they could, as a particular group, be identified, can take action.
That said, Rohan, there are two challenges facing the public. One, it involves costs.
Yes.
And not too many Grenadians are in a position to meet those costs. Okay? That's one. Two, Rohan, you and I know that there are a lot of lawyers who, even though deep in their hearts they may recognize, hey, this is a case that's worth taking on, for whatever reasons, and I leave you to speculate on what those reasons may be, they decide, nah, me ain't taking that one on. So those are two challenges, two reasons why a lot of cases or potential cases are just not brought. Am I correct?
Well, it is. I mean, a lawyer is free while your oath of office takes you to provide the best advice and to accept any retainer once you're capable of doing it. There are various reasons why a particular lawyer may not be able to treat with a case, and I wouldn't speculate as to why certain lawyers may not take certain case. I will wish to add, though, George, in our particular present dispensation, there is a third, much larger issue, I dare say.
Tell me.
The situation with our present court system.
Another one. Another one.
I mean, about a year and a half ago, Grenada was functioning, albeit not in a permanent home, but in some temporary arrangement with 4 courts, 4 high court judges sitting at the same time. We're now down to 2, with both in temporary accommodation. Accommodations which are interrupted sometime on very short notice because of other activities that are to take place, and with no real hope. I mean, I know some things are being done, but with no real indication as to where we go from here and how soon. So it is a major challenge, I think. Even if you find you have the funds and you find an attorney ready, willing, and able to take your case, having filed the case, one cannot guarantee you how soon that will happen.
Exactly.
And I tell you, that has been one of the challenges with both the matters we were speaking about, in particular with Gemma and Thomson. While it's appearing to be current issues, because the judgments or the impacts of the judgment are now being addressed, these are matters that arose in 2013 and 2014.
We often hear about class action suits being taken in the United States. Can those be taken here?
Yes, the law provides for class action suit, but again, it means identifying the issue and the group of persons who will qualify to be part of that class. But yes, the law allows for class action suits.
Okay. Martin Carmichael Simon says, government cannot pay Grenadians, but could give Liat $1 million from the taxpayers. I'm not even going to ask you to comment on that, because I think a lot of people know where that is going. Okay, I want to get Willie in here, but just before I do, I want you to touch on this past week's ruling. Up to the time I spoke to you this week, you mentioned that it was just a verbal ruling. You had not received a written ruling yet. Has the written ruling come down?
No, we still have not yet received the written judgment. What we have is an oral delivery of the judgment, which has indicated that, and in fact I was involved in 2 matters that judgment was given on Monday last. Willan Thomson, former commissioner, or I dare say commissioner of police, because the ruling, to the extent that it was delivered, indicated that his removal or his purported transfer from the office of commissioner was improper, and as such was unconstitutional. Obviously, I don't have the written judgment, so I cannot give an example or give an indication as to the reasoning of the learned trial judge. But we know that much, that his transfer was improper. And so if his transfer was improper, the natural effect of that in cases of this nature is that he continued to hold the office of Commissioner of Police. So there is that. There was also the case of Smith Roberts, former Superintendent of Police, who was also transferred and challenged his matter. Smith Roberts, on the other hand, was not successful. Again, the learned trial judge did not feel satisfied that we had convinced her that the office to which Smith Roberts was transferred was of a lower grade or status or rank than the position of a superintendent of police. Again, I don't have the written judgment, so I'm not in a position to analyze the reasoning and the thinking of the learned trial judge.
But the bottom line is that government could find itself having to dig into the coffers again to take care of Mr. Thomson? Yes.
For various reasons, I don't anticipate that Thomson case will get us in the range of a Gemma Baynes case, some of which I just pointed out. She was the most senior public officer and so on. The circumstances of her transfer and her continuation in the service until the judgment are different, quite different from Thomson's. Mm-hmm. So while one don't anticipate it would be a figure in the range of Gemma, yes, one could expect that he would be entitled to some damages.
Final question for you, Bob Marichal. If a minister acts outside the scope of his employment, can you tell me what does the Constitution prescribe by way of punishment? And he has punishment in inverted commas. You may want to define what the scope of employment means. Chew on that one, Mr. Phillip.
Well, off the cuff, George. The minister is appointed by the Governor General with responsibility for a particular office or ministry under advice or recommendation of the Prime Minister. If a minister should do something that one considers to be improper outside the scope, the first and natural step to be taken, or that may be taken, is that the Prime Minister may advise the Governor General that he is no longer happy with that recommendation and wish to have it changed. Depending on the breach, the minister is still a citizen of the state, and the Constitution as written and hopefully as implemented says we live in a country with the rule of law being supreme. So if the infraction is one which breaches the law, the minister may find himself liable either to the criminal or civil side of the courts or the law, and the person or persons aggrieved may very well choose to bring action against the minister.
Well, Rohan, come on, let's face it. In recent times, haven't you, as an attorney, questioned whether or not our laws hold the weight that they were known to in the past? It seems like we, especially those in authorities, just seem to have a flagrant disregard for adhering to the law.
It certainly appears so, George. But as citizen, and more so as an attorney at law myself, I think the judgments of which we speak today is itself some indication that yes, people do things, yes, it may appear that they get away with it, even for a long time, because as I pointed out, these are issues that arose in 2013 and 2014. But we do have evidence that the law, or the rule of law, does prevail as it ought to, and these judgments, I think, is testament of that fact. Mm-hmm. We probably need to, and again, if the administration of justice could be beefed up, we will, when the impact, or the response rather, the response to this infraction happen with a shorter time lag and one could see the enforcement taking place or the redress being materialized in a short of one will, the cynicism, which I agree has crept in, will, I say, put to rest. Because if we're in a society without the rule of law, it wouldn't be a place none of us wish to be. So
all right,
we have to be hopeful.
Rohan, I'm sure we have a lot more to talk about, but just let me say this. Thanks for leaving me on this note. Essentially, you're acknowledging that we do have a serious problem in this country, because if the rule of law seems to be going by the wayside, we're in a doghouse. We're in a doghouse. We're going to get to Mr. Willie Joseph right after we take this little break.
Boy, you, they gonna fly with kite now. The wind picking up. I'm coming, I'm coming. Karim, what you doing? Fly my kite. Yeah, but not here. You can't fly kite near power lines, boy. Why not? The wind good. Because mommy say, kite threads conduct electricity. Yeah, kite. He's right. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, you can cause power outages, or even worse, it can get shocked. Come, let's go and fly them in the pasture. Yeah, that makes sense. Kite threads conduct electricity. Do not fly kites near overhead power lines. This can lead to electric shocks and power outages. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, do not try to retrieve it. Release it and call GRENADA. Always fly kites in open areas. Keep your kites far away from roads. And remember, always clean up after yourself.
GRENADA, energizing our Grenada.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Start the stride to a healthy lifestyle at the 2019 annual Pump It Up Family Fun Walk. There'll be more fun, more smiles, and more prizes for families and friends. Join us in Carriacou on April 7th at 4 p.m. as we walk from the Harveyvale playing field to the Hillsborough tennis courts, and in Grenada on April 28th at 4 p.m. from the Montrouge playing field to the National Cricket Stadium. Packages cost $20 per person for up to 2 individuals and $15 per person for groups of 3 or more. Come out in your numbers to help us raise funds towards re-establishing the Carlton home. Welcome home.
All right, there he is, Pilgrims, Mr. William Joseph, who has been sitting here very quietly, very patiently awaiting his turn. Willie, you're sitting here digesting everything that Rohan has so eloquently brought forward. Before we get into specifics, what's going through your mind listening to Rohan?
Well, first of all, let me say thanks again and good morning. I think the basic thing is that while the occasion for being here for the discussion has to do with the judgments insofar as dollars and cents are involved, really and truly what we are talking about is the state of governance and the state of the Grenadian society. I think that really is at the core of the thing. So our experience with this practice of power and vis-a-vis the proper operation of provisions in the Constitution, I think those things come into play. And so we ask ourselves, perhaps provocatively, who will bear the conscience of the nation in this period? I don't know. I ask myself whether the church will say something, whether the NGO community will say something, whether civil society will say something, and I can't find that I could answer the question in the affirmative. So we have a problem. We are enduring a lot. We are enduring a lot, and that is where the thing is for the time being. Perhaps later we'll come to some more specifics as to how we might seek to respond in the context of developing new governance communities in Grenada, which the society so badly needs in terms of the relationship between the government and the people, the citizen. So that's my first cut of the thing. But I want to make I want to go on to make another preliminary point as follows. Now, the general elections produce two immediate consequences for us in Grenada. The first is that it establishes a parliament, and the second is the establishment of a cabinet heading up the executive. Now, the Constitution provides that Parliament must make laws for the peace, order, and good government. And you underline those two words. Not good governance, good government of Grenada. Right? So in its lawmaking role, the people we elect must go into Parliament and pass laws that are consistent with that particular standard. So my contention would be that at the level of the cabinet, decisions and policies must also meet that particular standard. And in the case that we're talking about, it attaches itself to the question of good government. No. So what is this good government thing that is talked about? Council might have something to share on that, but let me say what I think it is all about. There are two essential elements. One is, how do you treat the people of Grenada? The treatment of the citizens. And B, what is your attitude to the management of public resources? So, if we put those two on the table and we now stretch the thing into the Gemma Baynes and Willan Thomson and so on scenario, we ask ourselves, ought not the treatment of the citizens to extend to the treatment of public officers? Or the proper treatment of the citizen to extend to that meted out to the public officer. It's a very curious little thing, because we have seen for a long time, since our independence, that governments, and many of them, perhaps not all but many, have engaged in all sorts of practices, and they would say that it is intended to protect the government. So, and maybe in some cases this fair and reasonable that a prime minister should have a commissioner of police with whom he feels comfortable, because we are talking about security issues and so on. He being the Minister of National Security and the head of government and all of that stuff. So the question is, from that political concern and political interest, how do we move to effect this thing properly through the Public Service Commission? And I think, so one of the points that we are talking about thus far is that we are, and especially since the efforts at constitutional reform, there might be what we might call constitutional awareness among citizens, but the knowledge is still lacking, very, very lacking.
And there is a difference.
So, yes. So let me say this finally to expose this thing. Now, so the political people get up in their minds that, listen, I don't want to have ex-public officer in Y position, but this officer has been appointed by the Public Service Commission properly so, and therefore to move him about, to transfer him, and this and that, the commission must also act properly. Right? So we go now to see how this Public Service Commission is composed. There are 5 persons on the Public Service Commission. The Prime Minister directly says, X is my chairman, and he appoints 2 others. So 3 of the 5 are to be appointed on the advice of the Prime Minister without consultation with anyone, including the chairman. 3 out of 5. So you see the majority is already in the Prime Minister's hand.
Sure.
The other 2 cannot be appointed by the Governor General unless the Prime Minister is happy. There's consultation and so on and so on. He has to be happy. Otherwise, the other 2. So you see the problem. And when we do the thing that we, so that perhaps makes the Public Service Commission and those arrangements a ripe candidate for constitutional reform. How ought we to compose our Public Service Commission, given the role that it is required to play in public administration and in service to the nation as a whole? So you see there are a number of issues coming up there, but I think I could stop at this point. I went beyond your question, right?
Well, you know, maybe, Willie, but I mean, you've left me sitting here scratching my head. And I think I know you well enough, Willie, to be honest with you. Let me ask you this. Where the heck have you been living? You mentioned a couple of things here. First of all, the churches, civil society. I mean, you're saying that these are the people we, the public, should be depending on to help deal with these critical issues. Willie, where you been living, boy?
But no, I am lamenting it. I'm saying that really, these are the players who should step forward.
Yes!
And so on, and
Agreed.
help the rest of us in terms of sending a message or messages to the regime from time to time.
Okay, and if they don't?
Well, if they don't, who else is agitating? Where is the public advocacy going to come from? Who is the conscience of the nation?
That's what I'm trying to do here by having you gentlemen sitting here.
You see? So we set a thing up and we can have a polite conversation. We can have an enlightened conversation even. The question is, who's concerned? Who really is concerned in this Grenada?
And it goes back to the man on the street.
Yeah.
Okay. You also mentioned earlier on in your little monologue there the need to develop new governance communities. Okay? You know, interesting you should mention that, because within the last month, I have had a group of youngsters. I'm not even sure they have a name as a group, but they are youngsters who are very concerned about what they see happening in this country. And they wanted a platform to vent their aspirations, their frustrations. And so this past week, we did the most recent of their programs. They've now done 4 programs. And it's amazing, Willie, to sit in this chair and listen to these youngsters open up their hearts. They're beaming with ideas, okay? But you can sense the frustration coming out of them. They're knocking their heads against a brick wall and not getting anywhere. You know, they're being given the runaround. So I'm glad to hear you talk about developing new governance communities. Any idea of what direction that should go? How should that be pursued, Willie?
Well, it has to come from people in communities, really. I'll give you a live example. Recently, we had this notion announced publicly of a Council of Ministers for St. Andrew.
Yes, okay.
And okay, some of us published on it, and it would appear that those concerned remedied themselves on that problem. So they've put in place what is called a development council for St. Andrew. Now if that is properly constituted, and when I say properly, I mean to say that it must not be constituted only and primarily on the basis of political affiliation. If it takes into the fold people who are responsible in the St. Andrew Parish and so on, and regardless of their religious this or their political that or the other, we don't have a race issue in Grenada, thankfully. But if we do it that way, and we encourage people at a community level to look at their circumstances, discuss them, generate their recommendations, present them to the authorities and so on, that is one way in which we could establish governance communities. Young people have a very important, a very significant opportunity to establish a governance community pitched at young people. So you have a core, for example, those youngsters you just talked about. There might be other young people in Grenada who might be similarly minded and so on. Encourage them to get together.
All right.
And put their work on a platform that is well organized. The objectives are clear, and they direct themselves properly, not only at the authorities, but at the society as a whole.
All right. Rohan, by the way, John Kennison in Carriacou says, self-governance for all parishes and dependencies. John lives in Carriacou, and he's one of those people who feel that Carriacou is being left out, as do a lot of other people. And so he's no longer calling Carriacou a parish, he's calling Carriacou a dependency, all right? All right. Rohan, you're sitting here listening to the sky, and I notice that you're listening very intently, and I can hear the cobwebs turning up there. Why don't you share some of your thoughts with me, man?
On what you want my thoughts?
On what he's... let's start with the good governance part.
Yes. Indeed, and I particularly like how he crystallized the role of a government in terms of good governance, or government rather, by identifying the key examples being how you treat your citizens and how you manage the finances. And I think that is the core to it, because at the end of the day, any society or the bedrock of every society is the governed and those who are governing. And so the relationship between these two groups is what is important. And how that relationship is manifest, not necessarily on paper, but in everyday life, is the true testament of it. So I thought that was a very nice way to crystallize that relationship. And again, the Constitution quite properly identify exactly those two in many respects. By one, the fundamental rights, which is what govern that relationship with your people. And then, as is often said, to constitute any government, you need a Minister of Finance and really an Attorney General. Those are the officers of which the Constitution speak. Yes, a Prime Minister, but if the Prime Minister is capable of being the Minister of Finance, then two persons, theoretically, could constitute the government. And I say that to say, of all the various ministries, what the Constitution focused on was, yes, the management of the finance, that they have to be a consolidated fund, they have to be a minister responsible to take money from it and to account for how he takes it, and so on. So I see those as the two. On the issue of governance community, I think, yes, that concept has been spoken of in many regards for quite a long time. In fact, when he spoke about the St. Andrew Council or the St. Andrew concept, what came to mind was, well, the Constitution speaks of one for Carriacou. and 45th, is it 45th? Yes, 45th anniversary and going. We have not seen that in any meaningful way. I know years ago the ministry was created as I would dare say, a sort of a precursor to that, but I don't think it has manifested itself in any significant way by bringing that level of local governance to the people of Carriacou.
Peter Bishop here says, local government has been on the law books for Carriacou, and yet we cannot get it to come into being. Tell me, what should my people do?
Well, you know, I don't want to be, you know, a troublemaker on this point. But yeah, it's there, it's on the books and so on. The question is, what can the people of Carriacou do outside of a structure called local government? In other words, can residents on Carriacou not come together, establish something similar to what they've done in the, or are doing in St. Andrew? It's not a constitutional animal in St. Andrew. It is an operational thing, a people's thing, right? And it could start there, where you form something as Carriacou citizens, and you knock the door of the minister and the government at large, and you say, listen, here is an agenda that we are asking you to consider. And the whole range of things, and you could prioritize a thing, and you could set down how you would like the type of relationship you would like to have with the minister and ministry and so on, and with the government and so on. These are things that can happen and stirred by people, as distinct from the politician giving you what they want to give you. I think we have to break ground with some of these things after all of these years of independence, to try and help ourselves.
Ian Roberts says, start at the village level with a chief or leader. Group the village leaders on a parish level each month. This system has been in place from time immemorial, destroyed by colonialism. Ian, you've got Willie Joseph speechless, boy. Well, you're some kind of guy.
He has some African model in his mind. We never had it in Grenada and so on, evidently, in the way in which he's described it.
Kipling Francis is saying, herein lies the problem. The bad stick together, but the good people cannot come together because each one thinks they know better than the other. Huh? All right. Guys, let me tell you what. I'm going to take a little break here, and then we'll come on back with my guest, Mr. William Joseph, and Mr. Rohan Phillip.
Start the stride to a healthy lifestyle at the 2019 annual Pump It Up Family Fun Walk. There'll be more fun, more smiles, and more prizes for families and friends. Join us in Carriacou on April 7th at 4 p.m. as we walk from the Harveyvale playing field to the Hillsborough tennis courts, and in Grenada on April 28th at 4 p.m. from the Montrouge playing field to the National Cricket Stadium. Packages cost $20 per person for up to 2 individuals and $15 per person for groups of 3 or more. Come out in your numbers to help us raise funds towards re-establishing the Carlton home.
Welcome home.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Alrighty, folks, we are back, and I'm going to go directly now to Mr. Rohan Phillip. Rohan, boy, am I glad you're here this morning. I needed somebody to dump on, and you just happen to be that person. 2 things here on social media. First of all, Martin Ken Lewis says, who pays for this extra layer of government?
Which extra layer? The one of local government?
Yeah.
Well, it is part of government, so it will be paid for by the taxpayer. What you will realize, however, if there is a properly functioning local government, A number of the things that are now done by central government and the resources that goes to central government, and I dare say do not meet where they ought to meet, would be diverted to that. So it will not necessarily mean, I mean, obviously the figures will have to be computed, but it's not automatic simply because there is a local government that
it's going to be an additional.
The price, the cost goes up exponentially.
Okay.
It is really a diversion or diverting of funds from one place to another.
Okay. Fitzroy Adams says, Mr. Rohan. Fitzroy, Mr. Phillip. Rohan is his first name. Okay. He says, where is it? As a lawyer and a citizen of Grenada, what can you do to educate the people about their rights? And let me throw something in here. You know, there's a guy, one of your colleagues, Rohan, for more than 10 years. He's been sitting in here with me every week. I think you know the guy I'm talking about. Some guy, Recklessness Ferguson, I think his name is.
Indeed.
Trying to educate people about their rights. And for some reason, it ain't sinking in. Do you have any alternative? do you have any alternative ideas, Rohan?
None. I mean, the reality is programs like this help. I know the Bar Association has now been given a monthly slot on To the Point, that morning program. We have had an open invitation from George to come.
For a long time, yes. And it's still there.
Where there is a topic to be discussed. But those are the forum. I mean, and the reality is, in our own way, you meet people on the street, they confront you with a question. And it may be just something that is in the air, something in the, you know, something that is wrong, and you explain it as best you can, and hopefully there are a little better understanding of what the issue is, and we'll propagate it to the next person they meet. I mean, there is really no other way.
I think that if I may, I think there's a challenge here regarding what might be the most effective communications platform to use, and B, the content issue, right? In other words, what is delivered, what is transmitted to the average citizen. I have a sense from interacting here and there and all about the place that if you continue serving people information that they hear, and they hear it not just from you but from other people as well, but so they hear it, it doesn't stay. It doesn't stay with them because perhaps no interest of this has been affected. In other words, people are going to, a man is going to understand what the Constitution says about his property rights, primarily, essentially when he has a property problem. Yeah, that's how he's going to get it. And it's going to stay with him in that way. So there are these challenges that people face. Now, for example, poverty. We throw a lot of resources behind poverty. All kinds of programs. And the research is telling us that, yeah, you know, the expenditure is on the ground, it has happened, but the mindset of the poor has not changed. So then one would say, okay, there's a need to educate the poor, quote unquote. What form of education? It's not classroom education to bring poor people in. It's not that. It is about helping them to understand value. What is the value of what has been given to you?
Willie, let me jump in here.
And how is it going to be done?
Let me jump in here, because what you're saying also relates to what we just experienced with the last this referendum. Okay, people were saying you're not educating us. The people who were supposedly spreading the word about the CCJ, the advantages of the CCJ, they were marching up and down the country, consultation, workshops, this. And the people are there saying, duh, you know, They were not resonating. Now, there are people who said, well, there was no education process. Horse feathers. These guys were busting their chops all over the place. But they weren't getting through to the man on the street, Willie.
Not just not getting through. They were plugging in the thing in the wrong sockets. You see? You have to understand where people get their information. The average youngster gets his information not by looking at a television program. He doesn't get his information by attending a consultation. He gets it somewhere else. You have to put it there where he gets it. And then he will get it. And you have to put it in a form that he could understand, is relatable. And he can say, yes, well, I follow this. You see? So it's not just the existence of information and so on. It is how we package the menu.
All right. Rohan, I hope when this program ends, you're still going to be my friend. But all the tough ones seem to be coming to you this morning. Okay? You're from Carriacou, right? He's from Carriacou.
Well, I know.
he admitted he's from Carriacou. Okay?
All right, I've never denied it.
All right. He's never denied it. That's true.
No
Rohan, Peter Bishop. I'm sure you know Peter. He says,
very well.
Since Rohan has the winning formula. Hold on.
With friends like Bishop, you don't need anyone.
Exactly. Hold on. How about taking the government to court for our constitutional rights that have been denied in Carriacou re-local government?
It is possible. It is a provision in the Constitution. One will have to obviously seek to identify what did the government do or fail to do in terms of always crystallizing the issue, because a court, if you're to approach it, has to have specific issues that you're asking it to address. And I dare say simply going to say that the Constitution provides for local government and it wasn't done will not suffice. But it is a constitutional provision, and there is provisions in the Constitution. If any of its provisions are breached, or so, you could seek redress. The real question is whether the action or the inaction amounts to a breach, and that is what we will have to see.
And whether or not there are attorneys who would be willing to take on the process.
Always.
And
even sometimes finding the litigant.
Well, come on.
There's a willing guy to stand up.
Yeah.
Finding the litigant.
And that's always an issue, isn't it?
Well, it is an issue because the attorney takes the matter to court, but he takes it, he or she takes it on behalf of a litigant.
Sure.
Or litigants, depending on the circumstance. So finding the litigants is sometimes the issue.
Yeah.
And while you may find a group of persons or even a community, in the case of Carriacou, may tell you, yes, we want local government, is a good thing for us, I don't know how many you may find willing to say, I am prepared to put my name to a ticket to take a matter to court, to challenge it, or to seek to enforce it. I don't know.
Especially against government in this day and age.
Yeah.
All right.
That's important.
John in Carriacou says, fiscal space is always the get-out clause. And Kipling says, I'm trying to read this now, too many people are satisfied with handouts, and as long as there's someone or something one can blame for his or her mistake, there is no room for personal responsibility. I want to turn back to you, Willie, because Margaret is saying here, and she's talking about what we were just talking about a few minutes ago. Margaret says, in other words, it's where and what. Sorry. In other words, the where and what is not the problem. The problem is how that info is transmitted. And essentially, that's what we're saying. Yeah?
Yeah. But let me just footnote on this local government issue. Because you ask yourself what it is, and you consider the time in which this thing was put, in the circumstance in which this thing was put into the Constitution. How many? Almost 50 years ago now. Almost. Okay? So it is an administrative model, really. That's what it is. And if that is true, then it means that one could expect of it or from it certain services to be done. Okay? Now, okay. So let's go on to ask, okay, they have not put it in place. Can these certain other, these services, and others be done, be made to happen outside of a formal thing called local government? The thing is in the hands of the citizens, really. That would be my contention. It is in the hands of the citizens. I don't know that it helps anybody to keep lamenting that, you know, they have not implemented local government, when in fact, our brothers and sisters on Karaku could come together in many different ways to cause the services that they need to be provided. They have the power in their hands. They can do it. You see? They can do it. St. Mark does not have any localized structure for delivery of services. It doesn't. Neither does St. Patrick nor St. Andrew or whichever that you might have. But things are being done, and things are being done in Karaku also. So I really don't know that we need to, I mean, I said what of respect for our brothers and sisters on Karaku. But I think we need to move on a bit on this question and see whether we could organize our affairs in such a way that we get the authorities to provide the resources that we need to get the important things done, the things that we prioritize, done on Karaku, and to be done in a fair manner, meaning a non-discriminatory manner. There's no favoritism, there is no this, there's no that, to the extent that these things are, you know. I think we have to work at it.
Willie, if I may say, I hear you, and there is always that possibility. But community and groups have come together in Karaku on various issues. But as you would well appreciate, that has its limitation when you speak of garnering the resource and the respect of central government to get things done. I mean, I have known a number of issues where the people of Karaku have come together. The communities have said that's not what they want. They don't think in the best interest. I mean, the market, for one. The market was moved from its traditional location. And the people indicated it wouldn't work, it can't be good for various reasons. I am told, I was not in Karaku at the time, I was out studying or working, I can't remember which one now. But petitions were written and submitted. And without it even being given, I am told, an audience, so to speak, the market was moved.
Yes.
And there is no market there now.
Yes.
and that is just one example of quite a few.
Yes.
So, seemingly, except you have an arrangement that has the force of law, the people in the powers that be do what they please. And we've seen it repeated in a number of instances, which we're not here for.
The force of law point and so on. The whole morning we've been talking about that. The thing is in the law, and yet people infringe the law. But let me say this.
Quickly.
In response briefly to Rohan. Doesn't conclude the matter. The person involved in locating the market where it is in Karaku from one place to the other was elected. And he has been re-elected more than once after that.
Well, indeed.
You see, so we are in fact ourselves.
I agree with you. And that's why the community groups not going to be the answer.
Gentlemen, listen, we have spent the last hour and 20 minutes in our little tete-a-tete here, and I've learned a very important lesson. The next time you bring Willie Joseph and Rohan Phillip in here, you better give them at least 2 hours. We are just about out of time, but there are a couple of things that have shown up here in social media that I must get in. First of all, Martin Ken Lewis says, but isn't it kind of arrogant to assume that somehow people aren't educated on the issues, especially on the CCJ? People voted consciously to reject the CCJ, despite all the education that was done. Quickly, Willie.
Well, I don't know how to respond to that. I mean, we are talking about how we go about educating people at large. You can have at any one point a section of the population that says, I have a sufficient knowledge of the thing, and then you have significant section of the population that say, I don't know.
Margaret says, good point, Ken. We see what that assumption brought. We see what that assumption brought to us. But on the CCJ, I think the primary issue was one of trust. People rejected it because of their daily experiences with a dysfunctional court system region-wide. Mr. Lawyer?
Well, that would have been a significant aspect of it. And we heard it in the last days of the referendum here in Grenada, where people were saying, fix our courts, and then we could consider moving forward. So evidently that was a part of it to play. You also heard the comments of persons saying our judges and our politicians are buddies and they will call each other and so on. My response to that always was, in any sphere of life, it all boils down to the integrity of the persons you have there. We have to trust that we could raise society with sufficient numbers of persons with integrity and have them in offices where they would carry out their function.
All right. Gentlemen, let me say thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I've been talking for the past hour and 20 minutes with Rohan Phillip, the attorney for Gemma Bain-Thomas, and Mr. Willan Thomson, and Mr. William Joseph. Gentlemen, I hope that it won't be long before you guys come in here. Always good to see you. And I do appreciate the sacrifice that you've made coming in here on a Sunday morning. Thank you very, very much. Now, folks, we're going to take a little break here, and we're going to come on back with our final wrap-up.
General Insurance Company, strength and stability. Grenadian General Insurance Company. Tell your friends, tell your family. We cover householders comprehensive. Motor and even fire too. Contractors all risk burglary. Public liability. Professional indemnity. Directors liability. And wait, we still have more. Come and find out more what you're waiting for.
We are located on Scott Street, St. George's. For more information, call 440-2434.
Tell everybody. Start the stride to a healthy lifestyle at the 2019 annual Pump It Up Family Fun Walk. There'll be more fun, more smiles, and more prizes for families and friends. Join us in Carrickoo on April 7th at 4 p.m. as we walk from the Harveyvale playing field to the Hillsborough tennis courts, and in Grenada on April 28th at 4 p.m. from the Montrouge playing field to the National Cricket Stadium. Packages cost $20 per person for up to 2 individuals and $15 per person for groups of 3 or more. Come out in your numbers to help us raise funds towards re-establishing the Carlton Home. Welcome home.
Alrighty, folks, I'm very grateful to my guests for spending their Sunday morning with me, and also to those of you out there around the world who chose to join us for today's edition of Sundays with George Grant. Parting word from the Holy Scriptures comes to you from the book of Matthew, Matthew 28, 29, and 30. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Matthew 11:28-30. On that note, George Porgy's going to hightail it out of here, go see if he can find something to put in the old tummy, feed my face, and extend an invitation to you to join me tomorrow morning for the next edition of Good Day, Grenada. God bless you, folks.